Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Vortex, where lies and falsehoods are trapped and exposed. I'm Michael Voris. Controversy continues swirling around Pope Francis regarding whether he is actually the Pope or not. And these questions are being fueled by online Catholic personalities who are either misinformed, poorly educated, or grifting, happy to profit monetarily by keeping the fires of controversy stoked and all the clickbait they can get from it. Of course, it could be also some combination of all of those factors, but whatever the case, they keep the question of Francis's legitimacy alive. And then every now and then, the controversy erupts in a very pointed way. For example, Catholic internet personality Patrick Coffin has begun an online effort called Hope is Fuel, where he presents to Catholics, although anyone is presumably welcome, various topics and speakers about the faith and its application in all sorts of areas, mental health, for example. But in the last week or so, multiple various speakers and hosts began dropping out and stepping down from being presenters at this event because, according to them, Coffin's claim that Pope Francis is not really the Pope. Of course, the problem with that claim, and there are many problems with it, is that if he is not the Pope, then who is? Or is there a Pope at all? And if not, how do we ever get another Pope? The church would descend into anarchy and completely splinter apart if this were the case. It is a very dangerous proposition to claim there is no Pope, when there is a man in the office who actually is the Pope. And recognizing this danger is why various speakers have stepped aside from Coffin's Hope is Fuel online effort. Coffin, for his part, has tried to blunt the criticism, saying he is not saying there is no Pope, the official term for which is sedevacantism, Latin for the chair is empty. He maintains instead that it's just that Francis is an antipope. Well, a couple problems here. First, that is not what he maintained immediately following Pope Benedict's death. Here's his tweet. The Pope has entered eternity. Rest in peace. The impeded see is now vacant. May the pre-2013 cardinals do the right thing and avoid yet another antipope. To say the see is now empty is the very definition of sedevacantism, empty seat, vacant. And further, to claim that Francis is an antipope underscores this by accusing Francis of being a false claimant to the chair of Peter. That's what an antipope is. So Coffin clearly believes from his own tweet that it's not just the case that Francis is an anti-pope, but that there is, in fact, no pope. That's why, again, various speakers have left the conference. It's kind of hard to square any anti-Catholic position as being Catholic. It's the very principle at play why we all think Nancy Ann Biden, along with many others, should be excommunicated. But within the Catholic internet world, there are many bigger name types who believe this, but they're not quite so public and out there with it as Coffin. They secretly cheer the idea and promote by innuendo that Francis is in fact not the Pope. And what's more, they get at it from different starting points, but all of them end up at the same conclusion. There are three separate arguments they use, or imply, or suggest, or let just hang out there in the air because it benefits their agenda or their bottom line. They do not believe Francis is the Pope because either, one, the resignation of Benedict was not valid, or number two, the resignation was valid, but the 2013 conclave that elected Bergoglio was rigged and therefore his election was invalid, or three, the resignation was valid, the conclave was also valid and therefore legit, but Francis, after being validly elected, is now a heretic and therefore has forfeited the papacy. Depending on who you are on the Catholic internet scene, you jump into the stream of Francis is not the Pope at various points, either before, during, or after his election. But the current of that stream takes you to the same point. Francis ain't the Pope. For the record, supporters and promoters of the Francis was validly elected but is now a heretic position are fond of misquoting saints who say holding or preaching heresy disqualifies a man from being Pope without mentioning to you the opposing arguments from other saints and doctors who say just the opposite. That point has never been settled in church teaching, and for some public figures in the church to pretend it is either very dishonest or massively uninformed. In either case, they should not be presenting erroneous information to people because they simply like the conclusion because it suits their agenda of claiming some kind of strange moral high ground. Saints argued over this, but they lie to you and or deceive you or misinform you and allow you to think all the saints and doctors agreed. Far from it. Those who do not know should not speak. But in the days of the internet, well, enough said. Another point here is this. Small-minded Catholic internet personalities can't seem to grasp that a man cannot be both the Pope and an anti-Pope at the same time. Coffin and various of his Catholic internet celebrity buds like to leave this claim floating around also out there and consequently add to the confusion. Just like Pope Francis adds to the confusion. They employ his exact same methods, confusion, and then denounce him for being confusing. An anti-pope is a false claimant to the chair of St. Peter. You can't hold the position, which is done as a dodge from being accused of being a sedevacantist, that a man is both pope and anti-pope. He is either the pope or he is not. They deliberately conflate the notion of a bad pope with the idea of an anti-pope, as they're just different ways of saying the same thing. They are not different ways of saying the same thing. They're not even closely related. We've had many bad popes in 2,000 years, but they were not anti-popes. They were legitimate popes. They just sucked. Likewise, we have had many anti-popes in 2,000 years, but they were never the actual pope. They were the not pope. The anti-pope. See how that works? Bad pope does not equal anti-pope. They are two entirely different things. Why is all this, any of this, so constantly bandied about in some Catholic circles? Because the confusion that the validly elected and still valid Pope Francis has created by his own constant statements and appointments and so forth. That said, it is not Catholic to move from that truth, which is true, Francis is confusing, on a good day, to suggest that he either never was or no longer is the actual pope, and then construct a cottage industry around it whereby you get clicks and money and notoriety by pushing any of those three lines of thought, which each arrive at the same conclusion that he's not the pope. Francis is a crappy pope, no doubt. Church Militant was actually the first Catholic media outlet to publicly call for him to resign the papacy, and we did that not once, but twice. But nowhere did we, or do we, make the claim that he is not the Pope, and those who do, however they pretend to argue to it, are doing tremendous damage to those who have weak faith. They are unnecessarily planting seeds of doubt into people's minds, which the devil can then cultivate and use to destroy their faith. And for what? Some more clicks and revenue-generating controversy, or as a phony reason to excuse going into schism and pretending it's not schism? Supporting schism, claiming the Pope isn't really the Pope for whatever reason, is no way for faithful Catholics to respond to the current crisis, even if some of it is fueled by Pope Francis himself. Such people need to be mindful of this. Francis will one day, likely soon, no longer be the Pope. You best make sure that the scorched earth approach you are fanning the flames of does not leave so many souls in spiritual turmoil that they refuse to accept the next Pope as well. God love you. I'm Michael Voris.